Hello, in this online course for members of ethics committees, I am going to talk today on responsibilities of a researcher. In a scenario when we are talking about health research, we are talking about three different types of stakeholders. On one hand, we have researchers, then we have the participants who are involved actually or who participate in the research, and then there are some agencies which oversee the safety and protection as well as welfare of research participants like ethics committees, which you are trying to participate in. So, what we are trying to do in this particular course is to make you aware of what are the important roles and responsibilities of members of ethics committees, and here is where today I am going to just talk to you about what is the role of a researcher in a research study. So, and also explain to you what are the responsibilities that you have to decide that only the right kind of people do research and they do research the right way. Well, so therefore, the objective of this particular session is to describe the researcher's role and specific obligations to adhere and follow to ethics principles, and then to examine compliance to those requirements by ethics committees in the development and conduct of research study. So, a researcher, or we often call a researcher also as an investigator, and if it is a clinical research setting, we call it as a clinical research investigator. It is an individual who actually conceives the idea of doing a particular research study and also undertakes that particular research study, and under whose immediate direction this particular research study is undertaken. Sometimes there is a team of investigators that is involved here, and in such a situation where a single individual who is primarily responsible and is identified as a leader of the team is considered as the lead clinical research investigators. When we talk about what are the roles and responsibilities of a researcher or an investigator, the most important responsibility the person has is to practice good clinical practice or to observe good clinical practice. This is an international standard which describes how to conduct research within an ethical framework, but we have to understand good clinical practice does not necessarily mean that is doing good practice as far as giving care to the participants, and I will explain this particular concept a little further. So, investigators must follow clearly laid down procedures as far as study protocol is concerned, and study protocol is what is defined as a description of how the study will be conducted, who will be the participants, what are the time frames, which are the precise objectives, and what will be the study outcomes, how will the dissemination of information arising out of that will be done to people, how ethical principles will be followed, how analysis will be conducted, and all that gets covered as a part of the protocol. But the investigator also has responsibilities to keep the records of what he is doing appropriately, because all these records are verifiable and hence they have to be kept, because accountability is an important aspect, is an important implicit expectation in research, and accountability can be tested only by examining the records which are kept as of the study. Because what we expect in any research is a very high level of integrity, only what is observed and that gets appropriately interpreted must be reported. There should be no falsification of information to be presented at the end of the result. There are international and national regulations that are available that become the kind of guiding principles for clinical investigators and other types of investigators as to how they should conduct research. But basically they are designed to ensure that quality and integrity of the research is adequately maintained and data arising out of it. Also, the rights, safety and welfare of the research participants is appropriately protected. A new concept which is in the recent decade being increasingly discussed is what is called as responsible conduct of research, and here is where there is an expectation from every investigator or researcher that he or she understands what he or she is trying to do, and it is done within the perfect scientific scientific and ethical background. This is really important. So, the researcher has to follow integrity, meticulousness and accuracy while conducting research, even presenting it and finally publishing it as well. Another important aspect which one has to understand is the clinical researchers has to follow the methods which are generally well accepted by the society and they conform to the right scientific standards. Well, sometimes the research is done on those methodological aspects itself, and here is where the newer method is always compared to the older method to find if this provides any additional benefits. There are certain aspects which a researcher also has to follow while publishing the results. It is always important that nowadays there is an emphasis on publishing in an open and responsible manner in journals of high reputation or esteem. This is primarily aimed at disseminating the scientific knowledge, and it is an important consideration for all researchers now. They have to publish their research findings as early as possible. It even becomes important in terms of collaborative research. Many a times we nowadays see that a single researcher may not have all the facilities to do all kinds of study procedures under one single roof in a single institutions. Many institutions may be involved and many researchers from different institutions may be involved. What is important is the credit has to be appropriately shared between all those who are participating and contributing in that particular research. So, this is really important. It is also important that the researcher must comply with the standards set for scientific knowledge and in planning and conducting the research and also while reporting. One more important thing that has recently come up is that many countries including India have now signed to a WHO agreement, WHO led agreement, which requires that within a specified time the data of various clinical trials is shared openly with easy access to everyone to actually look at it. This is an understanding which all of us have come across globally, and we as researchers have to understand that we will now be responsible to share our data in due course of time. There are specific guidelines which are available now on the regulatory sites website and also Clinical Trials Registry of India, which is run by the Indian Council of Medical Research, and it is important to look at those and get yourself knowledgeable about this particular aspects. One of the important prerequisites for a researcher also is to ensure that the study should never start before taking all the necessary approvals. Typically, any kind of a study has to have a scientific approval, an ethics approval and also regulatory approval if it is required. So, scientific and ethics approval are important and a must. Sometimes some institutions and agencies have a common body called Institutional Review Board that looks both at the scientific aspects as well as ethics aspect, but sometimes some institutions have an independent scientific committee and an ethics committee to look at those two aspects independently. Nevertheless, even though there are two committees that exist to look at these two aspects, both these committees can look independently at the other aspect as well. Basically, what will this lead to is making the protocol more strong and examined more critically. What is important again for the investigator to understand is that if he is using human participants in any case in his research study, then there is researchers have to take care of the rights and welfare of those specific participants. At the same times, researchers have their own rights and responsibilities as well as obligation to participants which they have to follow. Sometimes when there are collaborative issues that involve where multiple people are involved, and when it comes to development of manuscripts, authorships need to be shared, and there are certain national international guidelines that are available which can guide the researchers as to how they should be giving credit to all others who are involved in research. It is also believed to be a good practice for the responsible conduct of research for researchers to clearly mention the source of financing as well as conflict of interest clearly in the protocol as well as in the final publications that come out of this particular research study. In certain situations, these studies are monitored by external agencies. The researchers should by no way interfere in these activities, because these monitoring and evaluations have to be real third party and to be done in a non-interfering manner, non-influencing manner. Researchers should play no role in this particular thing. The research organization where the research is conducted indirectly also has a responsibility to follow good financial as well as personnel management practices, because this creates an environment where the research will be able to do his or her own job more effectively. With all these guidelines that are available for responsible conduct of research, we do come across instances where research misconduct happens, and some of the examples of research misconduct include fabrication of data. So, eventually the analysis, the way it is done, the interpretations the way they are done are way different, and they really do not come out of the evidence that has actually been gathered. So, this is fabrication. Sometimes falsification and wrong representation. So, if researchers tend to draw wrong conclusions, again use wrong techniques to come to conclusions which are favorable to them rather than those that are actual and factual, and this should never be done. Plagiarism is an issue where unacknowledged use of somebody else's work is covered, but one has to now understand that many plagiarism softwares are now available which actually look at the manuscript from this point of view. Some journals allow up to 15% overlap of content, but anything which is more than that is considered generally non-acceptable in any standard and good journals. Sometimes authorships are manipulated. This should never be done. A person who has either conceived that particular study, who has actually helped to design the protocol, a person who has actually participated in collecting data for that particular study, and a person who has been actively involved in developing the manuscript. If 3 out of 4 of these conditions are fulfilled, a person is certainly entitled to be an author on a particular paper. Otherwise, the person should not be an author on a particular paper. Just collection of data by itself does not qualify the person to be an author on any paper. Sometimes, just to gain additional points or weightage, the curriculum vitae or the biodata which people submit as a part of the protocol, they mention wrongful information, and that again is not a good thing. It is a research misconduct. So, inclusion of some papers which are not written by them, they get mentioned. This is not a good practice. Doing certain advanced training, maintaining some kind of preliminary or having completed some kind of preliminary work in their own laboratories. These are the kind of examples where if they are not actually done and if they get mentioned, this is what is providing wrong information in the CV. I did mention earlier about good clinical practice. So, this is, as I said, is the primary responsibility of the researcher, and this is a standard for design, conduct and performance monitoring, auditing, recording, analysis and reporting of clinical trials. This concept of good clinical practice, although is more rigorously reviewed and followed in cases of clinical trials which are experimental study designs, same principles need to be followed in all other kinds of studies as well, that make studies more rational, more scientific, more ethical. So, basically GCP provides an assurance that the data and the reported results are credible and accurate, and that the rights, integrity and confidentiality of trial subjects are protected. Also, adherence to the principles of GCP is considered implicit as for responsible conduct of research. Some of the important principles under the good clinical practice include appropriate communication, which includes communication with the ethics committees, communication with sponsors, communicating with collaborators, communication with regulatory bodies, and so on and so forth. It is really important to maintain records of all of these communications appropriately, because they are definitely helpful in verifying what has been done in this particular area. Also, compliance with the protocol. So, maintenance of laboratory registers, maintenance of appropriate clinical forms, and appropriate data entry with good records of dates when actual visits have taken place, whether they match with the consent forms. These are all indicative of compliance with the protocol, whether inclusion and exclusion criteria were followed. If there are checklists which just verify this particular aspect, these studies become very strong GCP compliant studies. Then there has to be appropriate maintenance and use and disposal of investigational products. See, sometimes there is a trial of new drugs or new vaccines. What happens is, these after the trial is completed, these leftover products should never be used eventually, because these are still investigational products of questionable value, and hence the investigators must always resist the temptation of their use, even in the population which is very closely known to them. It is also quite important to adhere to the procedures which are outlined in the protocol for selection and recruitment of study participants. This is a very important step from ethics point of view. The medical care which is being given to the study subjects, like how the screening procedures will be done, then how the enrollment will be done, and how this particular care will be done given to the participants even after completion of the study. All these are critical aspects, and they have to be a part of in the protocol clearly defined. We as ethics committee members have to verify whether this all this information is available in the protocol or not. Then the sometimes studies require collection of not only data in the form of records, but also samples, which after doing those specific tests they need to be kept for certain period of time, because some laboratory procedures might eventually fail and may have to be repeated. In this particular scenario, those stored samples can be utilized. In certain trials which are of regulatory nature, it is an obligation of the clinical researchers to maintain those samples and records for a period of 5 to 10 years, even if the records are all digitized and the samples have already been tested, but they are required to be kept, because eventually some problem may come up, audit may happen, and in that case all those samples have to be produced again and some additional investigations may be called for. Additionally, when we are talking of in terms of clinical trials, there is a very unique feature like occurrence of adverse events or serious adverse events. This depends on their severity, but they are required to be reported to the ethics committee, to the sponsor, as well as to the regulatory bodies, and there are set and defined conditions under which they have to be reported. There are set timelines within which they have to be reported, and also on well defined pre-identified forms in which this information has to be submitted. So, the clinical investigators have to comply with these expectations also well, and then the investigators are expected to cooperate in monitoring and auditing of records. Any third party investigation which has been authenticated by the sponsor, the investigators have to agree for the monitoring by the third party. So, now if we just have to see as to what are the principles for review by ethics committee members with respect to the investigators' responsibility. It all starts with first close scrutiny of investigators' competence, and this just gets this information is available through the curriculum vitae or biodata. This just explains the profile of the investigator in terms of previous experience, in terms of previous research grants, in terms of previous publications that particular person has, which help the reviewers to understand whether the person who is applying for this particular grant is actually competent to do this particular study. If there are any questions in the minds of ethics committees, they should not members, they should not hesitate to talk about that openly and get necessary clarifications, because it is expected that all the investigators may not have the necessary expertise, but at least these investigators should make a provision by which additional experts and investigators are invited to give that particular expertise in the study which is lying within his own team. Also, the next step is to ensure that all the approvals are in place. So, that is the next step before giving the final OK to this particular study to proceed, because it is the scientific approval first, regulatory approval, and then the ethics approval. All these three approvals, once they are there, then the study can begin, not before that. Then there should be also a clear description about completeness of the study protocol with respect to the responsible conduct of research requirements. I did make a mention of all of those earlier. What is important is to try and see whether all those things which we talked about, right from study procedures to record keeping to sample collection to storage to manuscript development to conflict of interest declaration to giving credit to people and sharing of data, publications, etc. All these things must be mentioned very clearly. So, this description of study procedure including recruitment, standardization of procedures, what are various quality control mechanisms that are being thought about, particularly for laboratory procedures and assays, they need to be clearly defined, and as reviewers we need to verify those. Additionally, I did mention that there are issues related to publications also, which we have to verify what are the assurances given by the investigator. And the conflict of interest as explained by the participants has to be examined to see whether or not the conflict is allowable, or the investigator with that conflict of interest can participate in the study, or the ethics committee would like to disallow involvement of that particular investigator in a study. So, these are critical decisions which need to be taken. So, ethics committees do have a very important role to play in assessing the quality and the functions which a investigator is going to play or discharge during the research study, and they have to examine this aspect carefully. Thank you for your attention.